Let's begin. There was something tragically beautiful about the way Nolan Hart loved. Quiet, loyal, methodical, a man of unwavering consistency. He wasn't flashy or poetic, but when he loved as if his ribs were made to cage only one heart beside his own. Callie Rhodes had once filled that space with laughter that lit up their sunlit kitchen, and with reckless energy that constantly challenged his steady nature. They were opposites in every sense. She was flame and he was stone, but for nearly 8 years, they made the impossible work. Together, they crafted a life that most would label perfect. But perfection, Nolan would later learn, is often the mask chaos wears. The first crack appeared on Wednesday. That morning, Nolan found himself alone at breakfast, staring at a half-toasted bagel left in the toaster, already cold. Callie's coffee cup sat untouched. Her side of the bed had been made before he even woke. By the third week of these subtle absences, his routines had begun to disintegrate. Their weekend hikes, canceled. Their Wednesday wine nights, forgotten. Their Sunday ritual of cooking pancakes in pajamas, replaced by her unexplained trips downtown. Just to clear my head, she claimed. But Nolan noticed the shift long before she ever uttered a single word of discontent. It was in the way her gaze lingered too long at her phone, or how she no longer held his hand during movies. He told himself it was work, that maybe Callie, a fiercely ambitious marketing executive, was just exhausted from her company's merger. But love, real love, always knows when it's being diluted. One night, after she returned home past 11 p.m. with alcohol on her breath and a forced smile, Nolan stood by the kitchen counter and asked plainly, "Are you seeing someone else?" Callie blinked twice. What? He didn't repeat himself. The silence stretched. She finally exhaled, looking away. "I'm not cheating. Nolan, I feel like we've stopped living. Everything feels boring." "Boring," he repeated, stunned. "We work for this life." She sat on a stool, eyes glassy. "I know, but I miss who I was before. I miss excitement, passion. I miss feeling like I mattered." "You matter," he said firmly, stepping closer. "To you," she whispered, "but not to myself." That night ended without a fight. No screaming, no tears, just the subtle drift of two people sitting on opposite sides of the bed, unsure if the person beside them was still their home. But the worst part, Nolan still believed they could fix it. He didn't yet know that Callie had already made her decision, just not out loud. Nolan began noticing the rituals of absence before the betrayals were confirmed. Callie wasn't careless. She wasn't the type to leave lipstick on a collar or whisper strange names in her sleep. She was methodical, almost cold in how she created her escape. She started locking her phone. She added passwords to her laptop. She wore perfume only on nights she didn't see Nolan. Her wardrobe evolved subtly, edgier, tighter, more alluring, but always under the guise of work events or dinners with clients. And Nolan? He said nothing, not because he didn't notice, but because he feared the truth more than the lie. His days became filled with robotic precision. Wake up, coffee, conference call, sandwich at his desk, cook dinner, eat alone, pretend Callie's late return was noble, go to bed before she got home, repeat. But inside, he was unraveling. Every evening, he told himself, tonight, I'll ask. Every morning, he'd wake with the regret that he hadn't. Then came the night he broke. It was a Friday. She walked in near midnight. Lipstick perfect. No jacket. Eyes bright in a way that didn't belong to him anymore. "I thought you had a team meeting," Nolan said from the couch, not looking at her. "I did. Then we got drinks." "You know how things go," she replied, setting her purse down and kicking off her heels without a care. "Who's we?" he asked quietly. She paused. That fraction of a second told him everything. "Colleagues. You don't know them." He stood up, his jaw tight. "You shower when you get home now. Every night. You never did that before. And your perfume. It's not for work." "Nolan." "No, let me finish. I know you're seeing someone else. I know because I stopped trusting your eyes weeks ago. And I hate that I'm starting to hate the woman I still love." Callie turned away. "You're being dramatic." He let out a broken laugh. "You know what's funny? I've been thinking I failed you. That maybe I became too predictable. Too safe. But this is betrayal, Callie. Not exploration. Not reinvention. It's betrayal." Then came the truth. Not the full truth, but enough to kill what was left. I've been with someone, yes, she said, crossing her arms like she was protecting herself. But I didn't plan it. It just happened. Nolan stared at her, like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. Was it worth it? Her voice was small now. It made me feel alive. Nolan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed beside her while she snored softly, unaware or unbothered by the pain she delivered. He stared at the ceiling, planning not just a reaction, but a response. A man betrayed will rage. A man broken will cry. But Nolan wasn't either. He was about to become something else entirely. Nolan didn't leave immediately. That would have been too easy for her. What Callie didn't realize was that the version of Nolan she betrayed wasn't the one she was going to deal with next. He played along at first, said nothing when she spent entire weekends at conferences, even made her breakfast the next morning, her favorite, scrambled eggs with goat cheese and fresh parsley. She seemed confused, wary, but said nothing. Internally, Nolan was building. For 2 months, he documented everything. Every lie, every late-night return, every unexplained charge on their joint account. He even hired a discreet private investigator, not to confront her, but to understand the battlefield before launching his war. The findings? Brutal. She wasn't just seeing one man. She was rotating between two. One from her office, a man named Eli Vaughn, recently divorced and addicted to the chase. And another, Jason Lynn, a freelance photographer Callie met during a brand campaign. Hotel bookings, receipts, even surveillance photos. Proof layered upon proof. But what hurt Nolan most wasn't the physical betrayal. It was the effort she put into hiding it while letting him decay emotionally by her side. She never loved them. She loved herself too much to love anyone else. Still, Nolan stayed silent. Each morning, he kissed her forehead. Each night, he asked how her day went. She gave vague replies. They'd eat in silence, watch TV in silence, and sleep beside each other like strangers in a shared coffin. But Nolan had already begun building something in the background. You see, years before they married, Nolan had co-founded a software startup. It went quiet during their marriage, almost forgotten. Callie had no clue that Nolan still held 60% ownership after it quietly merged with a cybersecurity firm overseas. He never spoke of the money, never changed his lifestyle, but his savings, they were substantial. So while Callie continued living her lie, Nolan bought a sleek condo in a new city under a shell name, furnished it, set up remote work deals, even got a new phone and number, burner style. Then came the final piece. He created a trail, one that would lead her exactly where he wanted her when the time was right. A decoy version of himself, lonely, depressed, passive, confused. He made sure her guilt never grew teeth, that she kept underestimating him, because Callie didn't just need to be exposed. She needed to feel what Nolan had felt, powerless, humiliated, small. So one night, while she was traveling for work, Nolan drove to the condo, flipped open his laptop, and scheduled a series of emails, time released and loaded with everything. Photos, logs, videos. Subject line, the truth you never thought I knew. He sent them to Eli, Jason's girlfriend, Callie's boss, Callie's father, and lastly, Callie herself. Then he walked into his new condo, sat down, and waited. Exactly 1 hour and 12 minutes later, his phone exploded with calls. He didn't pick up a single one. Not yet. The storm came fast. By the next morning, Callie's carefully built facade collapsed like sandcastles beneath a rogue wave. Nolan sat in his sun-drenched condo with a cup of black coffee in hand, his laptop open, dozens of notifications unread, and his old phone vibrating nonstop in the drawer beside him like a trapped animal. He didn't rush to check. He had time. In fact, he'd spent months making sure he had all the time in the world. The emails he had sent were exact, deliberate, and merciless. Not just exposés, they were autopsies of a marriage. He had CC'd Eli's wife. Nolan had found her through property records and LinkedIn. Jason's long-term girlfriend. She received a file titled, Hotel Nights While You Waited Home. Callie's boss got one with proof of workplace misconduct, detailing her after-hours strategy meetings with Eli, including timestamps that matched with client absences and internal policy breaches. And the one he sent to her father? It simply read, You once told me to protect her like my own. I did, until she started burning everything we built. By 8 a.m., the first message finally came through that Nolan decided to read. It was from Callie. Callie, Nolan, what did you do? I'm getting calls. Eli's wife is threatening legal action. Jason's girlfriend showed up at my building. My boss suspended me. What's happening? Please just call me. We need to fix this. I made a mistake, okay? But you're ruining my life. He stared at the message for a while, unmoved. Mistake? She called her sustained betrayal a mistake, as if infidelity was something you tripped and fell into. He typed back one line. Nolan, I'm not ruining your life, Callie. I'm letting everyone see it for what it is. Then, radio silence. But her desperation was only beginning. By noon, her Instagram and LinkedIn were both disabled. The marketing firm where she worked placed her on investigative leave. Jason's girlfriend posted screenshots from an email on Twitter. It caught fire, generating thousands of retweets under hashtags like hashtag brand of betrayal and hashtag office affair exposed. And Eli, he was fired by 4 p.m. for inappropriate workplace conduct. His soon-to-be ex-wife filed for divorce the same day. Callie's world wasn't just crumbling. It was imploding, publicly, messily, without any space for denial. Meanwhile, Nolan's new life thrived quietly. His condo overlooked a quiet lake. He started jogging again, cooked from scratch, read poetry before bed. No more broken conversations. No more dinners eaten in silence with a woman texting someone else under the table. It was peace. But peace didn't mean satisfaction. Not yet. Something was missing. Closure. Not for himself, but for her. She needed to know why the person she betrayed never begged, never yelled, never fought. Because he was never her prisoner to begin with. So, 3 days later, he agreed to meet her, on his terms. A neutral cafe downtown. Noon. Public enough to keep her performative tears in check. She showed up in oversized sunglasses, face pale, dressed down, shaken. He sat calmly, sipping a cappuccino, his expression unreadable. Why? She asked, sliding into the seat opposite him. Her voice trembled. Why would you do that? Why ruin me? He leaned forward slightly. Do you want the honest answer, or the one you'll try to twist into a sob story for your friends? She blinked, surprised. The honest one. Because you didn't ruin me, Callie. You erased me. Slowly, quietly, with every lie you called freedom. You stood in front of me and said you were bored, like I was a box you couldn't wait to check off. And I let it happen, for months. But I realized I was married to a woman who would cheat, lie, and then expect a soft landing. You don't get soft landings anymore. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but Nolan didn't stop. You called our life boring, then welcome to chaos. You wanted thrill, now live in it. She gripped her paper cup tightly. I lost everything. No, Nolan said quietly. You lost everything you stole. What was built through love, you reduced to convenience. That's not a loss. That's justice catching up. She leaned back, deflated. Do you hate me? He paused. Thought about it. No, I pity you. They sat in silence, two broken halves of a life they once shared. Finally, Nolan stood, dropped some cash on the table, and said his final words to her. I loved you, Callie, even when you didn't deserve it. But now I love myself more. He walked away, and this time, she watched him disappear. The winter that followed wasn't kind to the city. Streets were blanketed in gray slush. Wind sliced through every coat, and storefronts flashed with dull lights that did little to brighten the gloom. But to Nolan, every step he took in that cold was a reminder that he was no longer shackled to the slow, rotting decay of the life he'd once shared with Callie. 3 months had passed since their final meeting in the cafe, since he had looked her in the eye and handed back all the grief, confusion, and devastation she once dumped into his soul. But unlike her, Nolan had no interest in destruction for the sake of revenge. What he wanted was rebirth. And in that season of frozen streets and silent nights, Nolan slowly rebuilt a new man from the ashes of betrayal. He didn't jump into dating. He didn't drown in drunken nights or chase hollow warmth from strangers. Instead, he went inward. He started waking early, just before dawn, when the world was still half asleep. He'd brew his coffee, now black and strong, and sit by the window, journaling thoughts he never had time to acknowledge in his old life. Things like, I wasn't boring. I was stable. And stability isn't weakness. Love should not cost your self-worth. I deserve someone who doesn't need to feel alive by destroying others. He bought paints, oils, canvases, brushes, things he hadn't touched since college. He remembered Callie once laughing at his hobby, calling it a waste of time, when she preferred posting filtered versions of reality online. But now, with every brushstroke, Nolan felt color return to his world, vivid and unfiltered. He even joined a small art collective downtown. Quiet, quirky souls. People who didn't care about titles, appearances, or perfect Instagram grids. There, he met Mara. Not as a lover. Not at first. Just as someone who noticed the way he looked at skies. Not with longing, but with gratitude. She was soft-spoken, taught violin to kids, and had once walked away from a controlling relationship herself. They didn't talk about heartbreak right away. They talked about favorite sounds, the comfort of morning light on cold windows, and how silence can be the kindest language when spoken between two people who understand pain. It took Nolan months to let his guard down, but Mara never rushed him. "You don't owe me sunshine," she once told him. "Just don't pretend the rain never happened." And slowly, Nolan opened up. He told her everything, not as a victim recounting horror, but as a survivor outlining the blueprint of his own resurrection. She listened, never interrupted. Her eyes didn't widen in pity, only in understanding. One night, over tea, she asked, "Do you think you could ever trust someone again?" Truly. Nolan looked at her, the warmth of her presence quietly filling the room. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think I'm ready to try." And that was the beginning. A new beginning, not a rebound, not a fairy tale, but something real, something slowly earned. Meanwhile, back in the old city, Callie faced her own reckoning. She lost her job permanently after the internal investigation confirmed her unethical conduct. Eli's ex-wife sued both him and Callie for damages. Jason's girlfriend launched a blog that went viral, sharing her story under the title, "Love Isn't Polyamory When It's Built on Lies." Callie applied for jobs under new names, tried to scrub her online identity, but screenshots live forever. So do reputations. Occasionally, Nolan would get updates through mutual friends. He never asked, but sometimes they came anyway. "Did you hear she moved in with her mom? She's trying to rebrand herself as a relationship coach. Can you believe that?" She reached out to Martin, wanted to apologize through him. But Nolan didn't respond. He no longer needed her apology. Because healing, he realized, isn't about hearing, "I'm sorry." It's about no longer needing it to breathe again. The man who once sat in his dark kitchen, hollowed out and silent, now walked the streets of a new town with his spine straight, his voice steady, and a quiet knowing in his heart. He had survived the worst version of love and found something better on the other side. And not just with someone else, but with himself.